Okay, quick recap of the index as well as some individual names today. Essentially what we had here, just to kind of provide context and recap today's action in relation to what we saw yesterday. Let's break it down. So this morning in the pre-market live, we were talking about watching the reaction versus the 43.35 area. That was kind of the key reference point for this morning in either direction. Right. What we ended up seeing was price failing to get above that 43.35. Again, that was prior day resistance, and then went ahead and kind of rolled over. We had a retest of that prior day low, which was the call from the pre-market live if 43.35 failed. An initial bounce right there that you can see on the 15-minute. Once that rolled over later into the morning, we retest that 200 MA, ultimately coming into our third downside level of interest, which was the 42.80 level. And that level coincided nicely with the SPY S3. SPY S3 held significance because it was that gap fill point, right? We've been looking at this gap fill, this SPY gap right here that pretty much initiated the summer rally. We've been looking at this gap for the entirety of the week as kind of a significant area. That filled, and once that level was filled, once that gap was filled, we had some pretty aggressive buying start to step in. Let me bring up ES here. So you could see that 42.80 get tested here intraday. It develops a higher low. Then look at the volume that comes in. This is way more than just short covering. This is actual real buyers stepping in and trying to get a piece of what could be a local low, right? We haven't seen a change in character yet, so kind of premature to be making those kind of calls, but could be a near-term low, could be a local low. And what we want to continue to watch here, like we talked about this morning, was the near-term structure. Bulls still need to break that 43.35. When you're looking at market structure, you want to zoom out. I don't want to hear about any 5-minute structure, any 2-minute structure. Like when we're talking about structure, let's look at the minimum, the 15-minute chart, right? Ideally the 30-minute chart and up. So let's bring up the 30-minute here. And what do we have? What do we have, right? Pretty much same thing that we've been talking about all week. And it was reiterated this morning in the pre-market live. We're still here. So a nice bounce on big volume is definitely notable. But until we see some follow through here above the 43.35, I am a bit skeptical. Now, take a look at the daily. This is kind of interesting because we were talking on Monday about that hammer that developed. And the concern with that particular hammer was the fact that it was done on average volume, right? Very basic volume price analysis concept here. You have two sell bars, a potential reversal signal done on low volume. That doesn't tell me that buyers are really stepping in. That tells me that shorts are covering in kind of a pretty obvious location, right? That hammer was negated, and we could expect it to be negated based on the volume on Tuesday. This morning, we see follow through below the 200 MA, but today's volume is much better, and we still have about half an hour before the final bell here on ES. So very similar to today's approach for tomorrow. What we want to see is whether or not buyers can get this thing above the 43.35. That is serving as a significant level this week. Ties right in with the 43.30, right? A 5-point difference. We'll consider that a zone close enough. 43.35, main level of interest heading into tomorrow. Of course, depending on what the overnight action shows us. You know, if we don't have any gap or anything like that, that kind of shakes things up. But that's pretty much the watch on ES. Incredible action today. Hopefully you guys caught a good portion of that short this morning, or at least were able to scalp a few opportunities through here. This is pretty clean. There were a number of 2-hour trader framework opportunities within today's action, 3 or 4 different setups, which is pretty unusual. We usually only see 1 or 2. So this is the kind of day you want to be taking advantage of and really, trying to squeeze it if you can. Now looking at individual names, we have Affirm. Similar setup that we've been talking about from Monday. Still tracking this same setup. You can see the levels are pretty much still here. This is just a technical play. We have no volume in it. AMD stays as a swing watch into the 200 MA. Maybe the daily volume point of control here, or at least a very, very high volume node. Looks like it. Yeah, daily volume point of control, depending on which time frame you look at. We know there's a high volume node here. So this could be some accumulation taking place over the past week. We want to be watching this for some swing opportunities. We have Costco as a second day trade this morning. Chatted about it. We were looking at the 540. The level was not that significant. Decided to pass on it with the idea that we would follow up and check the second day. Second day gives a much easier trade. And so what I'm going to be looking at here tomorrow is pretty much for the breakout play. All right, check the daily structure, check the near-term structure. We want some continued strength from today's action to push this thing up and through 565, up and through 570. That'll be the watch on Costco for tomorrow. MU post earnings. Don't know what's going to happen with this one. Don't gamble through earnings. What do we have here? Pretty much a big range with a slight trend higher, developing potentially a higher low here on the daily chart. So we'll see if this has any follow through depending on what the earnings shows. Net came up in my scans as a second day trade. Some unusual volume here today. Check out the intraday trading on 3x RVol. Gapping above the 200 MA, I just noticed that. And so we'll look for some potential follow through on today's action. Maybe even a swing candidate. This is a big base. So maybe. But that'll be on watch depending on if volume can continue. Rivian nailed this one today. The idea was pretty much spot on. Initially rejected the trigger once we had the market with the wind in our sails. That kind of helped propel this thing into PT1. So clean move here on Rivian, perfect test of PT1, then it kind of fades. So check the volume on that move, right? That's real participation. That shows 2 to 3x RVol there. So tomorrow, just looking for some continuation above 23.3. Go for today's PT2 and PT3 on Rivian. Check the 50 MA there. Being rejected initially. Finally, we had SE. This one was also solid today, right off the open. You have a nice signal right through there on the 2-minute chart, right? Pretty much launches. We do have a pullback into VWAP and then a test of the PT1. Can't ask for much cleaner action than that. Pretty much fizzled out after that. Let's see what kind of move this put in. So that was a 6% move off the open, which in the options is going to be a multi-bagger most likely on a Wednesday. So that was a monster play. Congrats if you caught that one. That was one of our main watches, one of the only individual names we had on the watch list today. Looking for, again, continuation on this particular move. We're trading on big RVol. That's why I like the big RVol. You get real moves. All right, same thing with the Rivian. Once we have that volume participation, yeah, you get a real move. So always look for that RVol. Higher than average volume, super important for the individual names. Primary watch, again, for tomorrow, ES. We're looking at 43.35, some killer action today. We'll see if buyers have the strength to at least stage some type of near-term reversal, maybe back into the 4,400. But like I mentioned this morning, I mean, we're in the exact same location. Yeah, we made the move down into that support zone and now bounced on big volume, but I'm looking at structure here. I need a break of 43.35. Otherwise this just gets treated as kind of a very, very short time frame relief rally. A little bit of a relief rally. Structure remains in play, right? Just kind of visualize what that may look like rolling over here. And the trend continues. And so don't get your hopes up for a massive reversal or anything like that just yet. right? We need a real change in character before we start to be feeling more bullish about things. Like I mentioned this morning, yeah, relief rallies can happen here and there. You can scalp some longs, but structure again remains down, remains pointing lower. Trend is lower. So that's pretty much the recap for today. Some killer action. Any questions on any of that stuff? Let me check the chat. Making sense. How are we feeling? All good? BA? Yeah, we can look at BA. Let's take a look. So, yeah, you have support here. You definitely have support here. The concern is this weekly chart. You probably want to be looking for some buying Thursday, Friday, and have a weekly bar on your side. Otherwise, look at this weekly. It's just pointing straight down. So location is good. Absolutely. Support zone. But we'd like to see some confirmation. The other issue with this is we're below all of the MAs, including the 200 MA with the fast MA, which is I have as the 8 or 9 period, just pointing straight down. So an aggressive entry would be down here. Sure. Personally, with the swings, I like entries that are a little easier. Don't need to be that aggressive with a swing trade personally, but yeah, location's good. Location's good. I'll just look for a little more confirmation, down in this zone. Down in this zone. So that's BA. That's BA. Got some thumbs up in the chat. Okay. Good stuff. Yeah, phenomenal day. Phenomenal day, guys. Hope it was profitable for everyone. Look at ES already kind of back in a VWAP here. Already rolling over a bit. So, starts to become a concern, right? Ideally, I'm looking at my other screen here. We have ticks, negative 1K currently. So, yeah, you don't want to be getting your hopes up when you see action like this, right? It's starting to look better. Don't get me wrong. But for me, I need a change in character. I need a real break of structure. All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. And I will see you in the chat. Take care.